There was a move by Democrats, and unfortunately, some Republicans I saw went along with this during the debate over the National Defense Authorization Act, that would draft women, that would create this system where women could be drafted potentially to go die overseas. We touched on it when this was being debated on the show. I just had a visceral reaction to it. I thought, this is so disgusting. This is so backwards. What kind of a country? America is basically safe, basically wealthy, basically secure, and we're going to drag our daughters and send them overseas and draft. I thought, what reasonable person could ever get behind this? But it looked like it was a done deal. And then, just in the past few days, you and some of your colleagues sponsored and co-sponsored an amendment to rip this out of the NDAA, and that appears to be successful.
Well, look, that's exactly right. And it's for over a decade, there's been this effort to try to make girls and women subject to the draft, subject to being forced into the military against their wishes. And it is driven by the Democrats. The Democrats emphatically want to be able to draft our daughters. And sadly, there are a bunch of compliant Republicans that are scared to stand up to it. They think, oh, well, if I say we shouldn't draft our daughters, somehow I don't like women. What utter garbage. Listen, I've got two daughters. If my girls want to serve in the military, God bless them. I will encourage them. I will cheer them on. That is a choice that is open to them. If they decide they want to serve in that capacity, bravo. That's their choice. But there's a difference between opening up our military, we have men and women who serve honorably, voluntarily, and forcibly conscripting a woman and putting her in harm's way when there are real biological differences between men and women. And to force women into the military, into combat against their wishes, is putting them at real risk. Are there some women that are badasses? Are there some women that could whip your butt or whip my butt? Sure. But probably not every woman. I'm confident, Michael, there is at least some woman who you could beat arm wrestling.
I hope so. I appreciate your confidence in me, Senator. I'm not totally sure, but thank you for the compliment.
I'm with you. I believe in you on that. But, you know, this battle, and I got to say, it was really looking bad that the Democrats were ramming this through, that half of the Republicans were surrendering on this. And there's a long history on this issue. So I got to tell you, I've been fighting against this for 9 years. And on the Senate Armed Services Committee, you know, one of the biggest proponents of drafting our daughters was John McCain. John McCain loved the idea, and he was chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I was on the Armed Services Committee, and I would battle him. I'd argue and yell, and McCain would curse at you. I mean, he had a temper, and he would yell and curse, and we had some epic battles.
I seem to recall he said some not very polite things about you on occasion, every now and again.
He called me a wacko bird. I thought that was a particularly nice. In fact, I had some activists who gave me a baseball cap with wacko bird written on it and a picture of Daffy Duck. But so what would happen every year in the Senate Armed Services Committee is he would fight for it, ram it through, and he would get enough Republicans to go along with the Democrats that he would succeed in that. But I would work with conservatives in the House, and we'd pull it out. And so I won those battles year after year after year, much to his volcanic rage. He was furious about it. So there's an interesting story on this, Michael. So beginning of 2017, Donald Trump's the new president. He nominates to be the general counsel of the Army a guy named Ryan Newman. Now, Ryan is a great guy. He was my chief counsel in the Senate. Ryan was a West Point graduate, served in the Army, was a captain in the Army. Ryan clerked on the U.S. Supreme Court for Justice Alito. Ryan was a student of mine at the University of Texas Law School. So when I was teaching Supreme Court litigation, he was one of my very best students. And so I was very enthusiastic when President Trump nominated Ryan to be the general counsel of the Army. So Ryan's hearing, his confirmation hearing, is set. The day before his hearing, he goes in to meet with the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, John McCain. And he sits down in McCain's office, and McCain asks him, says, Ryan, what are your views on drafting women? And Ryan gave exactly the right answer for a lawyer nominated to that job. And he says, Senator, that is a policy decision for Congress to make. Congress is elected to make that policy decision. If I was confirmed as General Counsel of the Army, I would implement whatever policy decision Congress made, which is exactly the right answer. McCain looks at him and goes, bullshit. I want your personal views. And Ryan says, well, sir, personally, I think it's a bad idea. McCain looks at him and says, get the hell out of my office. Throws him out of his office.
Wow.
Cancels his hearing the next day. And for the next couple of months, McCain refused to have a hearing with him, and ultimately the Trump White House withdrew the nomination, and they named him instead Deputy General Counsel at the Department of Defense, which doesn't require a Senate confirmation. So McCain was so pissed off about the fact that I had been leading the fight for years against his efforts to draft our daughters that he torpedoed an incredibly qualified guy's nomination to be General Counsel of the Army because he was mad at him and he was really mad at me. And I got to say, you know, John McCain was an incredible war hero, but he may be rolling over in his grave because once again, we've beaten the efforts of the bad guys to try to draft our daughters and force them into combat.
That is great stuff. You know, I'm sure having Professor Cruz on the old CV may not have helped your friend very much in this meeting with Senator McCain, but this is really great stuff. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that McCain had been pushing so hard for that. There are a number of Republicans who were pushing for it. Frankly, I found it disqualifying. I felt if you were of the view that we should forcibly draft America's daughters, you just don't get it. There's just something has gone wrong in your political vision. I did not think that we were going to be able to get it out this time. I thought that the Democrats had succeeded. And so seriously, I mean this, I hate to give a sincere compliment on the show, but great stuff. Just kudos. Thank you. Great stuff. I am so glad that you and some of your colleagues were able to pull this out and do the right thing.